when still in KBC, I said education does principally two things. Number one, it introduces you to yourself and to the world around you. And then number two, it empowers you to maximize that which you have identified. The problem that we are facing is that we have conceptualized academics and education around exams. If you look at what we call the global competence matrix, it outlines what is expected in examinations at the end of a period of training. One of those things, it talks about the ability of an individual to investigate the world. That is why it talks about empowering you, introducing you to yourself and to the world around you, and to empowering you to maximize that which you've identified. So if the process of education does not enable you to investigate the world, for example, then you do not attain one of the factors in the global competence matrix. And number two is to realize and recognize perspectives. And that is a factor that must be taken into consideration. And I'm looking at number three, to communicate ideas. Today, we are, and I mentioned from the onset that we have a great disconnect between academics and employability. It is in this country today, and Prof will bear me a witness, that you get graduates who cannot satisfactorily express themselves in English. So I do not subscribe to the same thought as he of CBC. But I tend to believe that the content that we are passing to the people is what has a problem, and that is why the passage of exams becomes a problem. We must not overemphasize on the passage of exam, because therefore schools train for passing of exam, not passing on of knowledge. And number two, we must never politicize academics. Those of us who've been around this country for too long, we realize that exams have basically been politicized.
Really?
When you had a minister who was coming from Central Kenya, then you realize the schools in Central Kenya perform better. When we went to Kisii, then the schools around that place must perform better. It is because the weight of responsibility is put on the individual who is in charge of that docket to ensure that his region performs better. We must move from the aspect, well, which I appreciate CBC is trying to do, we must move from the aspect of passing exams and of burdening the kids with only 3 days, for example, for primary exams, for example, with only those 3 days. So you work towards the 3 days. We need to prepare them for life. An individual once said that we can never prepare the future for our children, but we can prepare our children for the future. So summarily, we need to relook the aspect of our academics. I have always been in support of the original 844. Because if you looked at the original 844, it is far much better even compared to the content of delivery in what CBC is talking about. Because I say that it's not the number of years that a person spends in school, but it's in the content that is packaged in that child. If you looked at the original 844, you realize